Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to look at settings related to solutions such as communication compliance and compliance manager. So the first one is communication compliance. Let's go to settings, and in settings, solution settings, under that select communication compliance. So there are 5 different options within communication compliance settings. First one is privacy, second one is notice templates, third one is sentiment analysis, fourth one is cross policy resolution, and fifth one is teams. Let's look at what is privacy settings related to communications compliance. Looking at privacy settings, when any communication compliance policy raises alert, this alert can either show the username because of whom the policy triggered an alert, or can hide the username across all communication compliance features such as policies, alerts, and so on. If you want user not to be disclosed, then select show anonymized versions of username, which will show something like Anony ISB 988. Or if you want the username to be disclosed, then select do not show anonymized versions of username, which will give you the actual username in all communication compliance features. The next one is notice template. So when an alert is generated, you can notify the user because of whom the alert is generated, or you can notify any governance team members using a particular notice option. So this is where you can create a template for sending notices, and in actual communication compliance policy you can select this particular notice template there and send the notice. So let's look at what is there, how to create notice template. Select create notice template, provide the notice template name, template to notify, send from, you can provide a user or the data governance team group. So I'm adding a user for now. You can CC anyone to whom this template should go. You can also BCC. You can add subject, application for communication compliance. Then you can add message body. Hello, this is to notify that the policy identify in a text has raised alert for the message sent by the user, and you can provide the username or by the user. Thanks. So the template is created here. Let's go to communication compliance solution and see how this can be tagged. Go to policies under communication compliance. Let's check for inappropriate text. Let's go for inappropriate content for now. So different items are selected. Now select notify and select the template. And now you have the template which got added here. You can save it and you can close it. So this is how the template is added to communication compliance. Now let's go back to settings, go to communication compliance. So we have looked at how the notice templates are created. Now let's look at sentiment analysis. So when sentiment analysis option is turned on, then sentiment analysis will be used to label matching items as positive, neutral, or negative. So which can help later to prioritize which message to investigate first and which can be ignored or which can be deprioritized. The next one is cross policy resolution. So if this setting is turned on and an investigator resolves a message in a policy, all other instances of the same message will be automatically resolved across all other policies that detected it. So this action will be noted in the messages history for each policy. Now let's say if you don't select this or turn it on, or if you don't turn it on, then all remediation actions will be individually applied to each policy match. Now let's look at Teams. So by default, policies that detect Teams messages will include Teams meeting transcripts in matching results. Now to collect meeting recordings along with the transcript, you must grant access to your organization's SharePoint and OneDrive data. So this is where that is done. So this is about settings of communication compliance. Now let's check out settings related to compliance manager. Okay, so the settings of compliance manager contains four main settings, that is testing servers, manage user history and user access, and connectors. When you go to testing source, now when you apply an improvement action, you need to test it and provide test case and results details to compliance manager as a process of completing the improvement action. So here are a few settings related to these tests. So you can turn on automatic testing for all improvement actions, which will ensure compliance manager automatically tests the improvement action. You can turn off automatic testing for all improvement actions, or you can turn on automatic testing per improvement action. So in this action, you can see all improvement actions that are listed here. So you can see all these users who are, so here you are seeing all the improvement actions from compliance manager. Now you can select each one of them for which you want to turn on automatic testing. You can deselect to turn off automatic testing also. Click on save. So this is how this setting is set up. Now let's look at manage user history. So you can see all the data of users who are currently assigned with improvement actions or worked on improvement actions. For each of these users, you can export a report of user data. So you can export a report, or you can reassign improvement actions to a different user through this, or you can delete the history. So this is how the manage user history works. Then you have user access. So you can select users who you want to grant assessment or regulation access to. You can provide access to one or more assessments or regulations for each role. Let's add users and see how it's done. So click on add users. Click on add users. I will identify one of the users here to whom I want to add assessment and regulation. So MS Purview user 2. Click on next. Now you have three roles here: reader role, assessor role, and contributor role. So the reader role can only see assessment and regulation. In this case, can only see regulation details. He cannot edit the data, or he cannot do any contribute to anything. Assessor role, when this user, as part of assessor role, this user is added to certain regulation, then he can edit the data, but he cannot do any assessments. As a contributor, he can edit the data as well as he can check all the assessments related to the regulations. So as a reader, I select reader, add regulation, and I will add a regulation here. select a regulation from the list, and as an SSR also, I will select a regulation from the list. So because you are changing roles for one regulation, adding the SSR role will remove any prior roles the user was granted for this regulation. So you cannot add both all three roles or two roles to a single user. So either you can add him as a reader for the regulation, as an SSR for the regulation, or a contributor for the regulation. Now click on next. Now you can add the assessment which is created earlier in compliance manager and apply. Click on next and add permissions. So now this user will have a reader access to the regulation that is selected and the reader access to the assessment that is selected. Now the user access section of settings display list of all users who have a role that allows access to one or more assessments. If you see these users have one or more role that allows access to one or more assessments. That's why these all are listed here. So from this page, you can make changes to role assignments. When you change a setting, it will be reflected in the audit log. Now, another thing is when you grant a user access to an assessment, the user has access to just that one assessment. But when you grant a user access to a regulation, the user will have access to any assessment created with that regulation, including existing assessments and any assessments created in the future. So that's how these user access settings work. The fourth one is connectors. Let's see how they work. So the data connectors, So the data connectors establish connections with non-Microsoft services used in your organization and integrate them into your assessments, enabling automatic monitoring and testing of controls. So you have to enable Salesforce connectors, Zoom connectors, and corporate sustainability connectors. So to do so, you can select the connector and you can activate the connector. So when you click on activate the connector, it will go to data connectors feature, and there you will have options to create a new Salesforce connector. So you can provide the name of the connector. Now you have to provide username and password for this, and you have to validate it. So in this case, I do not have Salesforce connectivity, or I don't have Salesforce installed, so I cannot validate the connection. But in actual scenario, the Salesforce connections, when Salesforce connectivity is available, then you can validate the connection and click on next. Then it will activate the Salesforce connector. Similarly, you can do same for Zoom connectors and also for corporate sustainability connectors. So here in the next, you can also see my activated connectors. So if any connector is activated under available connectors, that will get listed in this place. So this is all about settings related to communication compliance and compliance manager. In future videos related to this Microsoft Purview settings, we will see settings related to unified catalog, data lifecycle management, data loss prevention, e-discovery, information protection, insider risk management, and records management. Thank you.